Started. This meeting, the intention of this meeting was to give an opportunity to those that still have some questions remaining. I know over the last month or so, we've received comments from different board members. We've forwarded those to SDRA and HDR, and then HDR has come back and responded with updating their response log spreadsheet. So I know that they've addressed a lot of the comments through that. This was an opportunity for us to go through any additional or remaining comments. And so I guess with that, we can open the floor to talk about any remaining comments. I know Brad had sent in I guess it was a slide deck that had a lot of different things on it. So I know there may be some remaining questions that need to come off of that, perhaps. I'm not sure. There was a lot of stuff that wasn't related to this meeting on it. But does anyone want to start with any remaining questions that we have?
So on the video, I mean, on the audio, who's, I see Dave's up there.
Let's all introduce ourselves.
Who's listening?
So
we can hear you well. Obviously I'm listening and paying close attention. Looks like we have Connie and Chris from SGRA and Ed. Raul is from HDR. Then
we also have Malia Good with the River Authority, as well as Justin Sant. And then Aaron, you want to?
Yeah, Aaron Hofstetter, Mud 6.
Oh, Chris Meeks, Connie Curtis, Ed Shackelford, Justin, Malia, and David Spencer. And then I guess we want to go around in this room. Eric Peterson.
David Smith, Mud 46.
Brad Howe, Mud 7.
Steve Briggs, Mud 67.
John Thaler, Mud 67.
Brad Real, Mud 47.
Neil Gaynor, Mud 6.
Jim Beers, Mud 1.
Joseph Figueroa, Mud 46.
Steve Lawrence, Mud 1.
So that's who we have here physically in the Woodlands.
So those look like the questions previously answered, not the ones that were most recently submitted last month.
yeah, basically, hopefully you all have had a chance to read at least the response to comment that we made to all 48 comments that we received. Basically, this Excel spreadsheet, which you all should have access to, has all 48 comments that you provided.
So that would not be true. We only have access to the first 29 questions. We haven't seen any responses for the remaining questions.
Got it. Justin, is it possible?
SJR submitted all those responses. It's not in our court.
So River Authority has them and they haven't sent forward them to us?
Looks like it was sent out to y'all last week.
Oh, no. I didn't get
So
it.
it said 33. You said it was 29.
No, he said 40 something.
48.
37.
How many did you say?
Emails.
The latest spreadsheet, the revised spreadsheet, how many items did you say you had?
It's shown here on the screen. Item 48. The last question was from John Thaler.
Oh, I don't have any of those responses.
Yeah, we don't have the latest responses. What do you, I've got through 29.
I got 29.
29. You said there was something sent out through 33?
Yes.
But still not.
Yes, not
48.
the latest.
But it wasn't sent to us.
Justin, do we have, or David, do we have the latest? The one you're showing? I do, I can go print it out.
Well, it's gonna be tough to go through, what, 15 items one by one in an hour. And there's other things to talk, we can frame some of that in the questions that we have.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
what I
some
was-
of them, man.
What I was hoping is, since probably not everybody read everybody else's comment and response, that if you have a follow-up question to an existing comment, you can reference that off the top so I can filter it and we can all see the original comment, who submitted it in the original response, and then any graphics that were developed to support the response. That way we all kind of have situational awareness of it. And then obviously if there's any new comments, we will add them to the list so that this continues to be a comprehensive list of every comment we've received from the MUDs and every response provided back.
Yeah, Eric, the latest was sent on Friday with the 48, and then Monday we just have the GIS out export of Waterline segments.
Can you clarify sent from whom to whom?
The Woodlands Water.
Well,
No, so say,
okay, he said,
from whom to whom? I heard the
From
answer Woodlands Water
SGRA to Woodlands Water.
on Friday.
Correct.
Okay.
none of us received it.
You sent it to the MUDs or just to Eric?
To me.
It was probably
To be
FHA, unfortunately. Poor guy.
29 items.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I understand, Eric.
But I should go, get copies of them right now.
I'll be right back.
It's only like 4 pages, 5 pages.
You printed it out on 11 by 17?
An awful lot to try to get caught up on and sitting here reading.
Yeah. So you saw my comments that I pulled together to kind of set the scene for this discussion. David, did you get those also? Were those forwarded up to HDR?
Yeah, they were. Let me pull those up.
Here's another suggestion for consideration is because I don't like reading stuff under pressure like this. I'd rather digest the information.
Yeah.
No, we
Putting it out there.
totally agree. We should,
Rather
we all,
digest it and we can reconvene, we can cut.
we've
through.
kind of made it a standard in the last 6 months or so that we should always have material ahead of a meeting so that we can do our homework. So we won't waste time in a meeting. We can ask good questions and we can help get the good answers for our constituents. So I totally agree with that. However, that said, I think Brad has sent some stuff out that we can talk about with the assembled body, and possibly some of the answers that HDR provided that we have not yet seen may show up in this conversation. What do you think of that?
I would support that.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of need to wait for Eric to
Get
get
something
back.
done. Yeah, wait for Eric to get moving. We can get something done that way and set the stage for the next one. That's just a thought.
Yeah, just for background, the questions have been coming in sporadically, and I believe we received some of them last week too. So that's why there's kind of a ebb and flow of the data getting answered and all that stuff. So
Yeah, we very
apologize
much
for you not having it.
We very much appreciate what happened. The only thing that happened that stopped it was Eric was on vacation and missed it. And so if we'd gotten it Friday, we had plenty of time. We would have worked through it. I promise you. We've been working hard on this data to try to understand it all. So it happens, and that's where we are. But it doesn't mean we should waste this hour.
Anything surprise you, Dave, on the second set of questions that came in?
The second page here.
No, the questions that came in last week and the week before that.
The second phase of questions.
Yeah, no, I think all of those were clear, and we provided a response to each and every one of them.
Yeah. So what we need is we just need to take those responses back after this meeting and take a look at them and then circle back. We were really hoping this would wrap up our engagement with HDR. Let me ask you, did you update Appendix H or A with some of the missing data or get them consistent?
Yeah, there was 2 breaks, I believe, that were associated to the wrong pipe, which we cleaned up in all of the outcomes and decisions, but we failed to clean that up in the raw break data that we sent you. So those 2 breaks were addressed. Didn't change anything in the decision making or the priorities or anything like that, but for those, the 2 out of the 150 or so breaks, those 2, the address was very clear into what pipe it should be associated to, but the raw data accidentally got associated to the pipe next to it. So that's clearly explained in the comment log.
One of the other things we struggled with is the condition data. Since table 5, was it 5.3? That table doesn't have the unique line identifiers or the project information in it. Did you release a new version of table 5.3?
Yeah, we did. We sent 5.3 in Excel.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Yep, and 4.3.
That was
And
part
then-
of the data that was sent on Friday last week that you have not received.
Okay, great.
That'll help.
Then I have a quick question also. Is there an updated version of the spreadsheet with the risk calculation, the standard risk calculation?
None of the adjustments changed any of the risk calculations. So for the naming, the first table in chapter 4 was basically what was scribed on each individual sample as the sample ID. And then in the later table, sometimes we simplified that or corrected the spelling of street names. I think it should be pretty clear how those match up, but those could be lined up 1-to-1. So the difference is just like the pin on the label of the sample versus kind of a cleaned up version of the sample name.
If we go back
But
for a second,
nothing changes in the risk.
You mentioned the first table in 4.
4.1.
That's an anticipated AC pipe deterioration
Yeah.
mechanisms. I'm not sure which table you're referring to. I'm sorry.
Was it table 4.3?
Oh, you're on
We're
4.3.
talking-
Okay, I want to make sure. Crack size?
Crack size? Yeah.
Nope.
The ones we've been working with are
413.
413? Sorry, I must have missed the one.
All right.
yeah, 413.
Have you, we're
Yeah,
having it-
so
we've had-
this is it. Like Grogan's Mill, north of Riva Road and south of the waterway. Like this is what they wrote in pen on the sample, and we simplified this to Grogan's Mill and Riva Road, I believe, in the other table.
And have you updated this table to reflect what of the 7 projects this information falls into?
We could update this. Just for context, this is kind of I guess the report is kind of written sequentially as the project was executed. And at this time, we were just collecting samples at particular locations, and no analysis had been done in this 4.4. It was more the analysis and decision making was in 5 and 6, and so that's where the projects start to come in.
But the difficulty we have is when we look at your summaries, they're very minimal at page. And we go back to these data sets like, chapter 5 and chapter 4. It's very difficult for us to, trace the data back to the project in which it's been assigned. And I'll give you another example, like break history. You know what I mean? When the break occurred, you have the data in A, which is, how would you say, is problematic in Appendix A. By the time you get to Appendix H, there's no break history listed. So again, when we start looking to the details to support, what was used to make the recommendations and the summaries, that it's very, very difficult. We've spent a lot of time trying to decode the 500 pages because of breaks in the links that we don't have access to.
Yeah,
I've heard about some of them already today.
I apologize for the decoding piece. Have you received the updated Appendix A, which is breaks cleaned July 29th, 2025?
No,
No,
no.
Okay.
So
Within that, each and every break is associated to either the project that the break occurred on, or this none continue to operate. So that would be on a pipe that's not within an existing project. So I think this should answer that latter question of like, if you wanted to see like for example, all the breaks on town center, you could filter it and see the dates of the breaks and the cause and how many breaks there were when they occurred.
excellent. This would be a big help.
And so now if I look at A and H, there'll be an agreement. Should be.
Exactly. Yes. And they were
But-
always, yeah. The only thing that changed was two legacy IDs. They were like two pipes next to each other and explained. So it was like DL 557 or 556, and they just got snapped to the wrong pipe.
So do we have an Excel spreadsheet, you said, for 5.3 that shows what condition samples go into what projects?
Yes.
I sent those in Excel, but I didn't add the project. I can add that very easily and resend that. I may have misunderstood your question. So I can add that in here if that's helpful.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah, what we were trying to do was find what specific samples justify which projects. And this chart or this table doesn't allow you to do that.
Yep. Okay. I
Right.
will add that to this table, and I will send it in Excel as well, so you have it in both versions.
Great.
Your version of A, you just showed up on the screen. You're missing some lat longs. You have all the lat longs of those breaks, or just, I realize you go back and historical data, like right there, you take 476 and 954 DLs. Does the lat long exist? Does it agree with the one in Appendix H?
So to help you, we provided to Eric the lat longs for all the projects that were identified as part of the recommendations that HTR offered. I don't think those have gotten out to y'all yet either.
and David, there was a request for Appendix H to add a risk calculation. The column that's currently there has the risk mitigation calculation. Is that something that you guys were able to add, a column for risk calculation?
Let me go to that question. So this is like putting it on a matrix?
No, this is just adding a column to Appendix H that has a risk calculation as opposed to a risk mitigation calculation.
Yeah, I have not added that. I can add that.
Okay, thank you.
Is it clear why we are recommending risk mitigated as opposed to risk mitigation, or is that still something that there's discussion around?
I would say I would say there's still a lot of discussion around this point. To give you the in principle argument is that having an idea of what is riskiest as a measure of consequence of failure and likelihood of failure, that information, having a ranking of that risk would help inform would be a very valuable piece of information compared to solely evaluating what is the amount of risk reduction that we would go if we were to decide to fund the particular project. So it'd be helpful to have the risk per se, so we can make a more informed decision as far as service level and tying it to a finite amount of resources. We'll invest it in potentially the highest risk down to the lower risk and go in that ranking.
Okay. And it looks like you did, because comment 14, it sounds like you have access to our response there. So you can see our concerns about pipe B being in good condition and being of higher risk than pipe C, and why the vast majority of utilities have moved towards risk mitigation as the measure for prioritizing projects. Okay, sounds like you have that information. We can add the column. I would just recommend that
14,
you use
sir.
risk mitigation.
Regardless of what number you use, I mean, they're not that different. Because everything unmitigated takes it down to a 1 probability on likelihood of failure. So it's almost like a constant offset. What is most interesting to me is understanding where this falls on a traditional risk matrix that has, green up to red. And, I think what we struggle with is what's the case for action? What's the trigger point? We understand where you can plot them, but if they're all down in the bottom left-hand corner, that doesn't give me a case for action. Typically, my experience would be we would start with understanding the as-is case, and then from there we would pick out the ones that are the highest risk, and then we would go work those. And I don't feel like we followed that process. And certainly using average numbers is a whole other complexity. And that was reflected in the PowerPoint we put together. So I don't know whether we want to, I hate to consume time just randomly taking questions on items we haven't had a chance to review. I'd rather do a more thoughtful discussion led by the PowerPoint, but I'll see how you guys feel about that.
I agree.
Okay, so you want to switch over to this guy?
Well, yeah,
Yes, please.
Let's, Eric and Ed and David, y'all comment on that?
I got a question. Where did this come from? I haven't seen this.
Brad sent it.
We share? We don't share?
It's sharing right now.
Well, now.
Oh, we shared yesterday. We did share. It was shared. I got a copy of it yesterday. Eric got a
I
copy.
shared it with Eric.
River Authority got it. We didn't know you were attending.
So.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I think there's some things on here that, in my opinion, aren't really pertinent to this meeting, but the things that relate to the specifics of the presentation or the analysis I do. So I'd say let's not waste time on some of it, but let's certainly dive into the questions that are remaining.
Okay, let's start on
I disagree with what he said because
let's start on the first page.
Yeah.
And Eric, you can comment.
Yeah.
I think there's so a little bit of background. A number of directors have been working since June to try to understand the case for action. We're fully aligned that we have to invest money, we have to maintain our systems, we have to maintain our level of service. What we also have accountability for is our stakeholders and our ratepayers to make sure we spend money timely and efficiently. And that's why we're asking the questions. Okay, it's not to be obstructionist, it's not to question anybody's technical work. It's just to help understand what's going on and make sure we're aligned on justification for spending money. We've been working. We knew that we had this meeting coming up, and we thought, okay, well, we haven't heard back anything from HDR. We don't have answers to our last set of questions. What do we want to get out of this meeting? Well, let's have a scene set to make sure we're all aware, and let's set the stage for going forward. So, I think the HER study greatly increased our understanding of the condition of our water lines. They used some significant rigorous engineering, both the desktop exercise and the sampling with the condition assessment. Key findings that came out of that, the break history is the best predictor of future breaks. I think that was, for us that didn't grow up in the industry, maybe some people that did grow up in the industry, that was a nice clarification HER was really clear on. The other thing they said very clearly was age is a poor predictor of future breaks. I guess I asked HER is this a good representation of your conclusions?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And then the key from us, the key learning that came out of this was going into, prior to the HER engagement, the recommendation on the table and the item that was approaching a vote was to replace 100% of AC pipelines. And HER came back based upon the rigor analysis and said, well, hey guys, you don't really need to do that. More than 70% of your AC pipeline is in good shape. So that's a major cost reduction. I looked at some numbers. The basis for the 100% was we had 180 going into HER, updated that to 227. And it looks like it dropped down to around $71.5 million. So that's a huge savings on AC pipeline. I think that's something that we as a community need to recognize and admit. Now, that's partially been offset by spending about $50 million on PVC replacements. And that's a big learning for us because our prior study from 2023 said AC pipeline was good Woodlands Parkway PVC line was good to 2048. And there's some follow-up on that. And I appreciate Chris's response to that. So kind of key takeaways, but where are we today? Understanding that we're still accountable for investment decisions and trying to understand and justify our decisions. We still have questions related to prioritization of projects, the scope of the project, and timing of projects. This gets down a little bit of details, and we're not trying to do engineering. We're trying to look from an investment standpoint. How do we justify this and how do we prioritize this so we make good use of our residents' money? What we hope is with a little bit of input from final input from HDR, we're now ready to move forward with River Authority, engage on how do we create an action plan based upon what HDR has provided. So the goal is to make sure we've got enough information that we can get alignment. We understand what resources need to be allocated, when they need to be allocated. And we think to do that, we need a direct connection between level of service and the requested funding. So Eric, I don't know where you think I deviated from what we're trying to do, but
None of that had anything to do with.
It has everything. I disagree.
Well, I mean, it's
This
a lot of
is
comments,
what feeds the questions here.
I
This is
understand,
the answers we need to get to come up to this level.
but the professional that's trying to answer the technical questions,
Yes.
he's not involved in this
Well,
stuff.
he did agree
You
to,
guys already know.
he
that.
signed off on what his major findings were. That's
I understand,
important to
but he's
document.
involved in the technical responses.
no,
Everything that we presented, that he was talking about how we got here, why we're here, what your role is, I get that. So we already went through it. What's the point of
Yeah,
arguing about
but-
it? He just went through it.
but the point on the technical, HCR has recommended a timing, the sequence of projects. So they are involved in this. Okay,
Yeah, recommendation of technical of when it's supposed to happen, but how we got here is what I was talking. He asked,
Okay.
what was it that I had a question
the
about?
background,
I have
you
that.
didn't,
That's right.
okay, the background.
That was
Okay.
my question.
The background was
I understand the background.
for David's viewpoint was, why are you guys asking about this?
I think he knows.
Well, we wanted to make, there's a lot of issues that arise when people make assumptions and aren't transparent. So this was our background. I mean, so I'd ask David and Ed and Eric, do you understand why we're doing this?
Yeah.
River Authority? And you understand where our concerns are?
I understand where your concerns are. I think some of your comments are not fully So, and I'll give you a specific example. The recommendation to replace AC lines reduced from 100% to 30%. We had recommended 100% over a period of time.
10 years.
And let me finish, please. And that period of time started out at 20 years. And then the audit committee or the trustees came back and said, we want to see what it would look like at 10 years. And that's what you all saw when you first came into office. So we were responding to the direction of the trustees' request. We can do this on whatever schedule you all want. Now, at some point, hang on, at some point, all of those AC lines are going to have to be replaced. Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or 30 years, that's immaterial. They're going to have to be replaced. So the 100%, hang on, the 100% still stands. It's just the timing of it that changes.
I'm simply going to say timing is extremely important. Time value of money is important. I know you're not. And whether it was 10 years or 20 years, the reality is that was what was recommended. The last thing we have on our plate was 10 years. We're not ascribing blame. We're simply saying, hey, HDR has helped us move from 100% to 30% in the next 10 years. And we think that's a significant finding. That's all we're saying. We're not saying anybody did anything bad. We're just saying, hey, good stuff. We can keep our powder dry for some other big projects that are coming up and still provide the level of service that we need to provide. It was all good news.
I'm going to tell you that's not the way it comes across.
Okay, well, I thought.
But I'm not trying to argue it. I'm just saying that's the way it comes across.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, so well, I can update this, not that anybody ever use this slide ever again, but qualify that within the next 10 years.
That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, certainly. But I do think it is very material, whether it's over the next 10 years or the next 50 years, particularly when you're talking about increased rates and what it means to our budgets. So, okay.
Fully understand that.
Okay.
Page 2.
Yeah. So that was kind of a scene set. And then to add more meat to our concerns about prioritization, scope, and timing, these are some of the questions that we think we still have open. And the first one is this whole, what's the as-is risk? Okay. And where does it lie on our traditional risk matrix that shows something that's a high risk or something that's a low risk based upon likelihood of failure and consequence of failure? Okay. We need to understand what's the base case justification and what's the triggering point for taking action. Okay. To say this is high risk or low risk doesn't tell me that I need to take action. It just tells me a relative prioritization. And when I get ready to spend money, I need to have a triggering action. Okay. So that's what we're asking for there. And I just glanced at the stuff you sent that we just saw a couple minutes ago. You put the points, the average points for each project on a risk matrix, but you didn't color code it. And I don't know whether it's a high risk or low risk. And I think using average data, as I'll comment in a minute, it brings its own set of concerns. The other thing that we feel missing is our understanding is the industry has a lot of information on break rate data. Okay. There are some suggested breakpoints on that or bench points. We haven't seen that. And our question is that coming or is that not to be used? And we understood you took that break rate data, incorporated into your risk matrix, but we think that's another key metric that we ought to have some discussion on. What are we doing? And do we have, as a community, have a standard expectation on what our break rate is? Okay. Go ahead.
Is it possible for us to pause on this first major bullet before we move to the second? Because some of the things you said there, I didn't fully understand. Like you use more than just like whatever this is, 7 words. So now I know what you're asking for, whereas I didn't just reading these 7 words.
Yeah, I'm happy to pause.
That's the same reason we need all time. I'm trying to.
So the justification for action is in chapter, is it 6? So if a GIS pipe has a risk of very high or worse, or a GIS pipe was found to be in poor or worse condition, that is the driver or the nexus, or let's see, what did you call it? You called it the justification for action.
Yeah, so, I mean, we got to be careful. I don't want to get down in the weeds, but if you go back to the document.
Right. Yep.
So you're 23 for a reduction in risk. If you fill out the full rate risk matrix, a 23 is not a really bad number. Okay. And
23 is the unique pipes that currently qualify because they're a very high risk or worse. It's not the score. 23 pipes in the system have a risk of very high or worse. So 23 pipes qualify.
okay, so I guess we'd like to dig deeper and understand that, and how's that relative to the full rate risk matrix? What numbers are you using for your breakpoint? So you say you got a breakpoint, you do the risk matrix, if the number's above X, it's very high, if it's below X, it's okay.
And is this risk or risk mitigation?
It's risk mitigation.
Risk
Yeah,
mitigation.
this isn't risk that he's referring to. It's the risk mitigation and
It's a prioritization, assuming that you're going to do them.
correct.
And that was 23 pipes in 10 years. Is that correct?
Yeah. But
23 pipes qualify for the near term renewal project plan. This is the criteria.
so those are segments, right?
Correct.
But we're replacing a lot more than 23 segments.
Right. And the next 2 paragraphs explain how that was updated to get to cost-effective replacement projects. You're not just going to go in and replace 40 feet of pipe at a time. It's not cost-effective, or 500 feet at a time. So this is the basis for the
consumption.
This is we're trying to make it as crystal clear as possible. This is the exact criteria that drove the projects in the 10-year plan.
Yeah, I guess we would rather see some real numbers, okay, and make it clear what the numbers are. And the 23 pipes, that's 23 segments. And overall, I think we're replacing 181 segments. So we're using 23 segments to justify the replacement of 181 segments.
Correct.
And some projects that appear to have one bag segment and the rest of the pipe project looks pretty good. Okay. So those are the type of questions I think we want to have a discussion around. And I don't think we need HDR to have that discussion. I think that's something that River Authority ought to own. But those are the type of things when we look at, are we efficiently spending money? Are we spending money that we may not need to spend? Okay. So that's the concern there. Okay, now on the pipe condition, so I was very surprised that on the risk matrix, you actually include, as you should, likelihood of failure and consequence of failure. On the pipe condition, you're only using a consequence of failure. I mean, a likelihood of failure, not a consequence of failure. So it seems like if you have a pipe that's in a bad condition or has a bad break history, but it's on a low consequence, on the risk matrix, you would say, no, I don't want to replace that. But from an inspection standpoint, regardless of its consequence, it's being pulled into the replacement pool. That seems inconsistent.
Yeah, these just that there is a difference there. These are all transmission pipes. These are big pipes with lots of water traveling through them. if any of them burst, they are going to be consequential. It's not like going into a treatment plant and you've got 4 levels of redundancy. So if one pump fails, you can click on the other 4. That's the reason why we are recommending that if a pipe is in poor or worse condition, it should be replaced, because all of these pipes have a baseline consequence that is significant. Is that
And why isn't that reflected in the risk matrix? I mean, the risk matrix only accounts for pipe size. It just seems like we're not being consistent across how we characterize risk and prioritize replacement projects.
so? The consequence includes the diameter, whether they serve critical customers or whether there's critical customers in close proximity, whether there's single points of failure, and the AMP, which includes historic knowledge of high consequence pipes that are not reflected in these first 3 items.
Well, it included a lot of things, didn't it? AMP, 30%? It had like
Yep.
5 factors, none of which we saw them broken down. We just saw a number, correct? So it's kind of hard to tell what's in that AMP number.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking exception to what you did for risk matrix. It's totally correct. I mean, it's what I would expect. But when you look at the condition information, you're only using a likelihood of failure to prioritize pipes, not a condition or consequence of failure.
Yeah, there's 2 trigger points. One is if it's from a desktop risk assessment, if it's very high risk or worse based on this calculation. And the second is if we excavated the pipe, took a sample from it, and found it to be in poor condition or worse. Those are the 2 triggers for getting into the 10-year plan.
So that's.
So we understand, we all agree what you did.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem is, not the problem, the feedback is for one trigger point, you include consequence of failure. For the other trigger point, you only included condition, you didn't include consequence of failure. That seems inconsistent. You can just tell me that's the way it's done and live with it. It's okay. But that was a feedback and a question. You're saying that from an inspection standpoint, consequence of failure is a constant and they're all high consequence and we should just go forward and only worry about the condition.
Yeah, I guess it could be more complex. It could be made more complex if we wanted to, like, say that not only are we going to replace everything that's poor or worse, but we're also going to replace things that are in fair condition and are extremely consequential. That was not the approach that we used. We used a slightly simpler approach that all these are transmission mains, and a transmission main that's found to be in poor or worse condition would trigger a replacement.
Okay.
So those are our assumptions. Obviously, those, well, yeah, people can pick at each assumption, but we try to be as clear as possible in every assumption we made.
Okay.
Just to clarify, that approach is the standard within the industry.
Correct.
Yep.
So I guess just returning to this, when I read required to create a base case justification for action, I didn't hear all the nuances that we just talked about in the last 10 minutes. So I didn't know exactly how to address this, but hearing it from you, now I can fully understand what you mean by these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't trying to write a novel. We were just trying to generate a discussion, which we've done. I appreciate your feedback. Okay. You want to talk about break rate?
Yeah. So do you want to go to the response to that question?
Which
We could,
we haven't seen it, so what number is it?
yeah. We're-
Way to run a business.
Will be at the end, right? Great. Or if you prefer this one, since you haven't seen it and would be seeing it for the first time, this might be it right here. Break
Yeah,
grade.
43, okay.
I don't know if you want to read this on this call or not, but we sent you the latest benchmarking information that's publicly published and are pointing out key pages to look at in terms of what's the average break rate in your region, what's the target break rate for pipe replacement that's reported by the utilities benchmarked, and so on and so forth. So I'm sure you're gonna want to roll up your sleeves and dive into that report and this response. But yeah, we did intend to respond to all your questions.
Okay. Okay, we'll take a look at that.
And that email was sent out about 25 minutes ago to everybody. They've had all of those.
I'll tell my wife. to
This
read it.
this is the report that I'm referencing, and all the page numbers are like, if you just type in the page number down here,
Is that what
you
this
can
one
jump
said?
to it.
Okay, super. Thanks so much.
There's 4 attachments in that email.
Perfect.
One is this you have in your hands. And then there's the 4-3, the 5-3. That's in there as well.
Okay, good.
There's-
Well, I spent a lot of time on those two.
Yeah, it's all in there.
All
Excellent.
right, thank you.
Except for I know at the beginning of the call, David, when we were talking about the 5-3, he said he was gonna make some.
A new one.
It wouldn't obviously have that in it.
Yeah, okay. But we should get that.
Yeah.
Within the next week.
But you have the previous version
Yeah.
prior to this call.
Okay.
Okay, Joseph, you want to talk about the second one a little bit more, or you think we talked about that enough, or?
I think we talked about it enough.
Okay. So, clearly HDR was hired because of their engineering expertise. And we appreciate the use of engineering judgment to do the prioritization. I guess going into the study, we were expecting somebody to come back that was very data-driven. And you talk about in chapter 6 that, your 2 key triggers or metrics that were used to prioritize the projects, but yet you overlaid on that some engineering judgment, which I would call non-risk-based factors. And we'd asked to see what the project prioritization would look like if you didn't include those other non-risk-based factors. Is that clear what we're talking about?
Crystal, did you get my response to that?
No.
Okay.
No, we don't have your responses to anything.
Nothing.
Okay, just
Initial
yeah.
send out.
Okay,
So just like the Cliff Notes version is town center would drop from a tier 1 to a tier 2 project. But that's the only change. Everything else is data driven.
okay.
Just to be like clear, let's see if I was to go to the report and the tiers. So this project tier, there's no math that gets me to 1, 2, 3, right? And that's the issue. This is developed based on 3 factors: the desktop risk assessment, the observed condition of the pipe, and other factors. These first 2 are calculated. It's all math. So we can say, trade center was found to be in the worst condition and town center was found to be in the second worst condition because it has a score of 4.7. And there's math and data that drive all the way up to this 4.7. The engineering judgment involved combining the desktop risk assessment, the condition number, and the other factors into this tiered system. So there's no math when we get to that component. And that's kind of, you know, the reason why town center would drop from a tier 1 priority to a tier 2. It's still the second worst condition project in the system. The risk is 4.6, so it's, you know, elevated, but not nearly as bad as a lot of these like Woodlands Parkway or Grogan's Mill. But I looked at these and evaluated how I would kind of join those to get to the priority tiers. So that's engineering judgment.
Okay, because we couldn't understand how, based upon the break history, how Town Center ended up as one of the 2 tier 1 projects. So it was the influence of the engineering's done and there's a hydraulic issue.
Yeah, you're right. So Town Center got a average risk score of 4.6. So it's not as risky as Woodlands Parkway, worst at 8.8, Grogan's Mill at 8.7. It's still way higher than the rest of the system, 0.9. It's still 5 times higher, but it's not as risky from a desktop assessment as some of these other projects. What really drove it to tier 2 is this 4.7. It's the second worst condition project in the entire system. And what drove it to tier 1 is the fact of the design. And there's some pretty significant hydraulic and operational issues. If you can make that second connection and have a second feed between the north and the south along Six Pines, not just on Grogan's Mill, that will give your operations staff a lot more flexibility in being able to move water north and south and add a lot of resiliency to your system. So that's what bumps it up to the tier 1 in my engineering judgment. But there is no math for this one.
So you're saying the Town Center is not a replacement in kind, it's a redesign that adds redundancy?
Yeah, so here, are you able to see my screen, this map?
Yes.
So this pink area here is service area 1. And then we've got the plant here that's providing the water. And what you can't see until you zoom in a little bit is that there's a gap here. So this is not a feed that we can push water through SJRA's system alone. We actually have to go through the little itty bitty 8-inch pipes in these side streets to get the water around if for some reason we ever had to shut this line down. So by making this connection here and upsizing this to a 16-inch, what it does from an operational perspective is give a loop that allows us a lot more resiliency in the system and the ability to move water in unideal circumstances if we have to.
So you're saying that black line would become part of Town Center?
Yes.
North, right?
And it would connect all the way down here to Mill Bend. That's what it's shown as an upsize. So this pipe would be upsized to be the similar diameter as this pipe up here. And it would be connected so that it comes all the way down here to Mill Bend and we can get water up and down if need be.
That wasn't anywhere in the 500 pages, right?
So is that pipe PVC? Could that be a separate project in its own? Is it related? You know,
It's AC. It's a 12-inch AC pipe.
AC pipe, but can it be a separate project in its own? Does it have to be combined with the rest of Town Center?
I would be interested in SJRA's opinion of this because they grouped this together. I did not analyze whether this could be broken off from the rest of Town Center here.
They grouped it together. I'm not sure I understood what you just said about they grouped it together. Could you explain that? You mean adding the hydraulic thing?
No, so I'll answer that. Hey,
Please.
y'all, this is Connie.
Hi.
Good to hear from y'all today. So I think what Dave means by they grouped it together was the town center project when it was paused in design. The Six Pine stretch there in blue that you see, as well as the remainder of the blue, less a little piece up on Lake Circle. All of that was already basically to a 90% design when we paused for this AC study, right? And so the lower section of Six Pines, I think, is risky, Dave. If I remember some of that, there's some data maybe down in that area that there's some risk there. But we, as the River Authority, based on the previous LAN studies, had brought Town Center as the first project, and we had grouped those together because they're in the same general location over there in the Town Center area, but also the Six Pines needed to be upsized to a 16, and there's a small section over on Grogan's Mill to the south, just as it crosses under Woodlands Parkway, that needs to be upsized as well, just for full clarity. But I think that's what Dave meant, and that's why those two projects are together. David, do we have to keep them together? I mean, I think that all things are on the table in this conversation for how we proceed, right?
So upsizing the lines is required to provide more capacity above 6 and final, or it's to meet the requirements to deliver 6 and final?
What it's actually doing, Brad, is we have design criteria where essentially, you know, the lines that were built when the development was originally done were not necessarily designed per current regulations or current design criteria, right? And so we had a study done. I think it was in the 2020-ish timeframe that applied a certain design criteria for hydraulic capacity, but also velocities, which are acceptable in the industry for pipes, for modern piping systems. And any place that we found where there was a constriction or we didn't meet those design criteria, we highlighted it and said, if ever we need to replace these pipes, we're going to make sure that they're the correct size based on modern pipe design criteria. And so Six Pines in that small section there along Grogan's Mill met that criteria that they needed to be upsized.
Okay. I mean, this discussion has been really helpful to justify why Town Center is at the top of the list. It's much more than just their break history.
Absolutely. So happy to try to answer any more of those questions like that.
So Connie, just for clarification, when I look at the spreadsheet, the project that was identified as Town Center, the pipe segments that are on there were originally designed to be included in that engineering study, and that's kind of why it's ready to go. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the other projects, though, were constructed by HDR? The 6 other projects?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, the word constructed threw me off.
Oh,
they were pulled together.
I wasn't out there with the shovel, but yeah. And we also took a hard look to validate this as well. So, but
what you'll actually see is that there's a small section that was actually added with the HDR study along Lake Circle.
And that's this section right here.
Just because there were some breaks with it, yes.
But as reported in the study, does Town Center include that black line being connected?
Yes, sir. That's part of the original design we were planning to do. It just isn't there, so it doesn't really show up as the existing pipe to be replaced, if that makes sense, Brad.
But it's going to be, you're replacing the black line, making it bigger, or just connecting to it?
No. We're just going to connect to the black line.
Okay.
Oh, I thought.
Yep, just connect to the black line. Correct.
Bring this one all the way down.
And then do a little bit thing across Six Pines to connect into the black line there at Timberlock.
Okay. We're at our time commitment. So, you know, Dave and the HER team, we really appreciate your effort to get us more understanding on how you prioritize, and you can see the rest of the questions in the PowerPoint. We'll look at your responses in the spreadsheet you sent us, or in the document you sent us, and then those additional spreadsheets. I don't know. I mean, we were hoping we'd leave this as a kind of transition. We have all the technical details we need from HDR. Now we just need to work with River Authority on, creating an action plan. I guess I'm still a little concerned that how do we know, when should a tier 2 project start? And is it really important that tier 3 projects finish in 10 years or can they finish in 15 years?
There was a question about that, and I think it was pretty early.
Yeah, John asked that question in the first set. And it wasn't,
John,
we didn't. Well, he asked it in the meeting. Maybe he didn't ask it in the,
I thought I did.
I think,
Right
I think,
oh, I may have asked it in the Almud. No, in the Almud meeting, John asked. I didn't ask it.
What I want to say is I think just that's 5-10 minutes of conversation. Oh, wait, they're gone? Yeah, the last 5 or 10 minutes of conversation we had specifically about the town center is exactly the kind of conversation I think we'd like to have going forward. So that we can sit down and look at each specific project and understand why HDR is put what they did in there and understand from SJR, River Authority's point of view, why they have constraints or concerns they want to address in these projects. And I think if we go through those in a logical fashion with each other, I think we can come up with the answers to what are the priorities of the projects, what belongs in the projects, and what the timing is. But without doing that, I think we're kind of still trying to gather data, and I don't see how independently we're going to come up with the right answers. That's just my thought.
I would kind of second that, in that when like we talked about with this one specifically, but with many of them,
yeah.
it's almost like telephone tag. Like you say something that makes perfect sense in your mind, but I need the other 2 sentences to fully understand what you're asking. And as soon as I understand what you want, then we can tell you how we calculated it. But
Right.
I don't really understand what you want all the time.
Mm-hmm. Because as Brad said, at the end of the day, we have to face our constituents and say, your rates are going up, or we want more tax dollars from you. And if we have confidence that we work closely together to develop the right projects at the right time, at the right cost, we can go sell this thing and be comfortable we're taking care of our constituents. And that's kind of why we wanted Brad had those first 3 bullet points in there, because that's what we're tasked with doing. And I think together we can achieve that goal.
Hey, Dave,
Right,
let me
so-
ask you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, thank you so much for that, John and Brad. And, from a River Authority's perspective, we're happy to continue to partner with y'all to try to make sure that your questions are answered. I know it sounds like y'all have got some other information that we have provided that y'all just haven't had a chance to review. So we can follow up with Eric on maybe what the next steps are here to make sure that we continue this productive conversation.
Great.
We're all for it.
David, let me ask you a question on like the tier 3 projects. Would you consider keeping them on a watch list and actually trying to identify trigger points to say when you want to do them, as opposed to saying, hey, we think we need to do these sometime before the 10 years is up? Because some of those you look like you've got very few breaks or low risk. You've got one where you've got 2 samples, combined they're a 4-1, but I'm hard pressed to justify a multi-million-dollar project on 1 sample. And I'm also hard pressed to replace lines that haven't broken, or have no break history. And that gets back to our level of service criteria. Are we saying, we want to avoid waiting for that first break, or, we are willing to wait for that first break?
Yeah, and
So David, your thoughts on
just to
that?
be clear, there's been 8 condition-related breaks on the first tier 3, and there's been 9 condition-related breaks on the second tier 3. We're definitely not replacing any projects that have never broken before.
Well, projects may be true, but on Westlake, 83% of the segments don't have any breaks.
Right.
Pretty district too.
Okay. So that's a pretty big investment for, or do we need to do maintenance on, or do we really need to replace the whole project?
Yeah.
Those are the type of things I'm concerned about.
And incorporating additional testing as we go into our analysis. Does the River Authority in the 10-year plan have something like a contingent or watch list as opposed to say, oh, we're going to do that in years 9 and 10?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. And I think something that, we're actually very much open on how y'all want to handle this in the 10-year plan, because right now there's nothing in the 10-year plan for these water lines, right? Because we've sort of been on hold of how y'all wanted to handle them. So, Brad, one of the things that I think I want to sort of make sure that we reiterate for everyone is the data collection doesn't stop just because the study ends, right? Like, we're going to continue to monitor when we have breaks and hold those and take them to the lab and understand that and collect that data. And then, maybe every 5 to 7 years, we talk with y'all about budgeting to kind of update this. Because to your point, Brad, things do change in a 5 to 7 year period. And it may be that the priorities do change. And before we get to Westlake or Alden Bridge or some of those in tier 3, we may have some others that introduce themselves that make better sense. But as you look at a 10-year plan, those that are on the 8, 9, 10 years out, those could change. And I think we all can understand that. And if we all go into it with that understanding that those that are further out, maybe we have to be more nimble with as we gain different data, that's kind of our expectation. But, y'all can kind of help us if maybe you don't want to have, 7 projects, maybe you're only comfortable with 5 or something like that. What makes sense to y'all? We want to partner with you and get to a place where y'all are comfortable.
Connie, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When these breaks in the future occur, or events, whatever, will you be requiring HDR to assist you to make reassessments and reprioritization of any of the given projects?
It won't be an on-call sort of thing like that, Neil. I think what we're expecting to do, and Chris, you can feel free to pipe in on this, since it will be more of something from an operations perspective, but we will collect a sample and have that held for analysis. Is that correct, Chris?
Possibly. We'll take a look at it and see. We do plan to continue taking samples and evaluate the need to go further.
Well, you're certainly going to continue to collect break data, I hope.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. With the break data, and as the pipes present themselves, we'll do our best to collect the data in the way that it can be used for future study, Neil.
So, but Connie, to your point, I see this as an engineering task to maintain the data and update the models rather than an operations task. But I guess that's internal, that's JRA, how they want to do that. But normally an engineering organization would own the monitoring and health assessment, not operations. So.
Great.
So just out of curiosity, these projects are averaging around 15 million each, give or take. And I know there's variation to the answer to this, but what is generally the start of design to finish of construction of these? And I know there's minor variance depending on, various things, but in general, what would you anticipate? Are these 3-year projects? Because they're all about 15. I mean, a couple are bigger or smaller, but they're averaging about 15 or so, just visually.
Yeah. Good
And
question.
that question was directed at me. Eric, I want to make sure that I heard that correctly.
Whomever. I mean, are
Whoever,
these
yeah.
5-year projects? Or are these 3-year? I know Town Center's different. Obviously, it's got some design stuff, but in general, what do you think these are in general?
I think a 3-year project, right? So you would have, the survey and the design can take a year depending on property acquisition needs. If there are any, that will extend a project out. So I think that is a variable that we'll have to discuss project by project as we get to them. And then from there, permitting should be simple because it's all within the woodlands. But the constructability and the construction, if the design is complex, then it may take 18 months to do the design. And then the construction would also be a little longer, but 3 years, 4 years, probably max on some of them.
Thank you. that has funding ramifications, that has, where does it go on the 10-year or 15-year? You know, that's why I was trying to figure out, you know.
Connie, can I follow up?
Yes, sir.
Some of these projects can be run in parallel, especially those that are perhaps, shall we say, distal from each other and have different requirements. There isn't a need for sequential construction.
Not necessarily. It's really up to, I think, how the MUDs would want to fund them, right? So to your point, if there's one kind of in the central district with town center, and then there's one, much further west, those don't impact traffic, or, the same citizens necessarily in the same way. So they could be done at the same time, if you so chose to do it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I mean, if you got, the Woodlands Mall one in Town Center, which are very close.
Yeah.
I not want to do that to that area,
Give them Eric's phone number.
over here and let, because Woodlands Parkway, that's out of the, that's.
Yeah, exactly.
Far away from a lot of these.
I mean,
And to some degree, like,
Go ahead.
once town center's done, you may want to take like a year break of pause of take a breath before you go do Woodlands Mall or something
probably
like
be
that,
doing
to give
engineering,
everybody a little bit of a break.
Right? You need engineering and design and.
Tech stuff doesn't do that on I-10, I'll tell you.
Right, well,
There's repaving the burns is driving me crazy.
right.
Tied up all the time.
All right.
Good stuff. HDR, thank you. That was you did
Thank you.
really good work and set the foundation for the building blocks for what we're going to try to do in the next 10 years, and I appreciate it.
So from next steps, are we talking about another hour call in another week or two? Or, I mean, yeah, we were hoping, I mean, we know the clock's ticking on the bill. So we were hoping kind of, as much as we like talking to HDR, that we would, we would say bye-bye.
Yeah,
But-
I feel like we need to continue to whittle down the questions.
Okay.
And maybe now that you have the information,
Yeah.
that may knock off a couple remaining.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can, I guess, after you've had an opportunity to look at all the information that was sent out earlier, continue to send in feedback to me, and then we'll try to sort through it and see what's remaining.
We'll funnel all questions through Brad.
Oh, that's fair, yeah. Otherwise you might get the same
I
question.
think it's same questions.
Yeah.
We'll
Because we've been,
However you.
that's good. I'll do it.
You okay with that?
Question for you, Eric.
Yeah,
What
okay.
about, what do we do?
Till September, then I'm gone.
We got a trustee meeting coming up and we got the monthly MUD meetings. Is there something that should be on the agenda so we can continue to talk to our MUDs? This is, some of us are represented and others aren't. How do we go about that?
So as requested by the trustees last month and through some of the MUD meetings, there's going to be agenda item of trustee meeting to specifically spell out the exact cadence of what to do with town center, with easements, changing the budget, getting the redesign, that type of thing. So that's specifically on there. And then there'll be another agenda item, the same one we've had on the agendas the last 2 months, which gave the MUDs and the trustees the opportunity to talk about this as a whole.
Right.
So not specific, one specific to North Town Center. I mean, I keep saying Town Center. I know that's another project. That's why I can't say.
There's another one coming?
Trade centers.
So Town Center and North Town Center were.
Oh, okay.
I keep saying North.
We've
I
been,
meant Town Center.
we've been discussing a $3 million design right away. That's the extent of discussion.
Right.
Not beyond that.
Right. At some point, we're gonna need to figure out governance on this, because I don't think that we can continue as an organization across the Woodlands that we have these big stopping points where you have new authorizations to decide whether or not to go forward with the project. So you have authorization to engineer or pre-engineer and then engineer and then bid and construct. And I think those need to be tied together, not with a specific, I gotta approve all at once.
Right.
But with a governance that understands that once we get done with the design, we're not gonna reevaluate the whole thing again to decide whether to do it or not. That's occurred several times.
Well, I think
So I think that needs to change from a governance standpoint. But I think we can get there.
I think with regards to pipelines, and I appreciate your comment. I think it's right. If we can get comfortable with the projects by going through them in detail with SJRA, we can help further that, because, okay, we know that's a project that needs to be done. We have a mark to start at year 3 because it's about the right timing, and that'll really make it a lot easier for what you're telling us to do. I do, but it's just a matter of sitting down, and it's only 7 projects. It's just a little bit of work. Everybody works on it together and we'll get the right answers.
Sure.
I think that I'm very comfortable with that. I think we've got to do it. As Brad initiated, we have to spend capital because our pipes are aging. That's fine.
Well,
We
and need to
appreciate
do
that.
Financial analysis to
Yeah.
identify what the result is to the customer.
Correct.
So we can't do